Welcome to another episode of The Simpsons Did It. I'm your host, Steven Skolansky.
I'm your co-host, Robert Skolansky.
Wow, last week was so much fun, wasn't it?
Oh my God, that was a blast. Andy is a really cool guy.
Yeah, he knows way too much.
Well, that's why he has a podcast called Edumacation.
Yeah, he likes educating people or edumacating people like us who don't know. I mean, you know how he berated us for not seeing all those references? I mean, come on. So to be fair, we didn't do the research and watch Twilight Zone and stuff.
No.
So maybe in the future we tend to watch those things before they happen. Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
I do like people just saying, you haven't seen it yet? Well, geez.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
How
That's
okay.
Okay.
People are, though.
Don't watch. Yeah, that's okay. People don't watch things. It's quite all right.
Yes.
But this week we're getting back to normal. Obviously, last week was Treehouse of Horror, so we didn't have the traditional episode with our final thoughts and ratings and stuff like that, just because it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't know how you grade a Treehouse of Horror episode. I really don't.
Yeah, you really can't, but that's okay. No. That was last week. Now we're back to some organization a little bit. We're going to go through episode 4 from season 2, which is 2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish.
Curiouser.
I would like a 3-eyed fish. That'd be kind of fun. I mean, I
think your son would love a 3-eyed fish.
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 fish, both with 2 eyes. I mean, I guess I could poke one of them out, and then I have 2 fish with 3 eyes, but I still don't think
that's a little unethical.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't do that.
No.
All right, which we'll learn about ethics in this episode.
Yeah, a lot of ethics.
A lot of ethics. Okay, so the air date for this episode was November 1st, 1990. And funny enough, they took a week off between Halloween and this episode. Because the last episode aired on December 24th.
You mean October 24th?
Or October 24th.
Which means they actually waited a day.
One day. We did mention that Thursdays and the dates were a little bit off on a few of them.
I believe this one might be a Sunday. Yeah.
So they changed it up a little bit throughout this season. The dates were kind of off for season 2. So quick recap. After Bart catches a 3-eyed fish, Burns decides to run for mayor to make sure the
governor.
Nuclear power...
I think I wrote that wrong. I did.
You did write mayor.
It's supposed to be governor. That is
yes, it's 100%
governor. My bad.
Yeah, that's what I get for reading the notes.
Well, maybe you should... By the way, this episode did air on a Thursday. So apparently the Treehouse of Horror one was a Wednesday.
Good to know. All right, so Burns decides to run for governor to make sure the nuclear power plant doesn't get closed. And Marge decides to get involved. Ooh, sneaky Marge.
So
she pulled the rug out under everyone.
Oh yeah, it's great. And we'll get into it. The chalkboard gag this week, I will not Xerox my butt. And for any of our maybe sort of younger listeners, if you don't know what a Xerox machine is, it's a copier machine. I don't know if anybody really calls it a Xerox machine anymore.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just well, Xerox is a brand name. That's true. Why I think the funny thing is
it's like Kleenex
or Band-Aid
or Bubbler. Bubbler is the brand name.
So, all right, guys. Let's make sure that we give Xerox its I think Xerox is still a company.
Is it?
Maybe. I don't know. I actually haven't seen a Xerox branded anything in a very long time.
I mean, I work at in an office setting, and I'm pretty sure our printers are not Xerox machines.
No, Xerox might be out of business. Sorry, we didn't do our research on that on the chalkboard gag because we're not insane.
So I was curious to see how much Maggie costs at the cash register. She costs $847.63.
And I was wondering where you got that number from because you don't see it, but
I paused.
It was like, you did. And I went back and I was like, pause, missed it, rewind, paused, missed it. Okay, you know what? I'm going to take his word for it because I did. The funny thing is I did see a number flash as I was pausing it, but the pause and the TV weren't lining up.
Like the way I did it is like I started it, I paused it, and then started, and then quickly, I did it super quickly. Like, you
Yeah.
gotta have to hit that pause button super quick on the remote.
Man, Maggie's an expensive I thought kids were priceless, but apparently they are not.
I mean, maybe
There
by
is
1990 standards, that's expensive, but by today's standards, that's pretty cheap to have a kid.
Yeah, not really. Cheap kids are expensive.
Yeah. Kids in general.
So, yes, they are. So, couch gag this week. The couch, so the Simpsons run in, they sit down, and the couch folds out into a bed. You know, one of those
fold-out beds.
Fold-out beds. And they must have really kicked that hard, which is funny because most fold-out beds don't work unless you take the couch cushions off first.
Yeah, that's one broken couch.
Yeah. I mean, after sitting on it, last week it fell, well, not last week, but 2 weeks ago, it fell through the floor. So obviously it broke.
Yeah. Man, that's a wicked couch.
I wish I could fold out a couch without taking off the couch cushions first.
I mean, it'd be nice. Save some time.
So the episode starts with Bart and Lisa at the old fishing hole.
Have you ever been to like I don't know, a creek or a park, and they actually name, like, to go fishing, and they name the fishing hole? Like, well, there's a sign. There's a literal sign that said, "Oh, this is the old fishing hole." Like,
my guess is it was there before the power plant was built.
Probably.
Because old was spelt with an E, which means it was really old.
Or somebody just liked Old English.
Or that. But I do like how the journalist knew exactly where. Like, I don't know if he was just going there to find, three-eyed fish.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not why he went, but
no.
I think he was just doing a news report on the nuclear power plant.
And he was just driving around and saw them fishing?
Maybe, unless he just decided to test the water or do something in that matter, but saw Bart and Lisa there. So Lisa's sitting there, and Bart and Lisa's like, I don't like fishing. I just do it for the tranquil feeling.
I mean, sometimes this is nice to be out there and pretending to fish. It's pretty peaceful.
Yep. And Bart's like, so Dave Sutton, the journalist, was like, what's Shutton? Shutton?
Yeah.
What's your name, son? I'm Bart Simpson. Who the hell are you?
This is now the second time he's done that to an adult, as we all remember when Homer pretends to be Santa Claus, when they get Santa's little helper. Bart responds in the same way, and the investigative journalist was like, that's not how we used to, talk to our elders. And it's Bart Simpson's, man. He's got that in-your-face attitude.
Yeah, he's like, I'm Dave Sutton. I'm an investigative reporter who's on this road a lot. And I must say that in my day, we didn't talk that way to our elders. Bart's like, well, this is my day, and we do, sir. But he says, sir. So obviously he at least has some respect for his elders. Yeah. But I do like the report, the investigative reporter. Yeah, I'm on this road a lot. He must have been really looking for that story on the nuclear power plant.
So, they're fishing, and I do like to use worms when I fish, which hasn't been in a while. I don't know if you have a particular bait that you like to use.
Worms are good.
I think the fishies like worms.
Yeah, they like the worms swimming around in their mouth before they get caught.
So as he's talking to the kids, Bart catches a fish. What do you know? And it's orange, and it's got 3 eyes.
Which the reporter literally turns the fish around. He's like, wait a minute. One. And the funny thing is you see the 3-eyed fish, but when the reporter turns it the first time, you only see one eye, and then he turns it the second time, you see the second eye, he turns it again, you see the third eye. And I'm like, we just saw all 3 eyes. I think we know how many eyes are on the fish.
I mean, I could understand, like, if you saw the fish and he's like, he sees the 3 eyes and he's like counting in his head. Wait a second. 1, 2. Wait, that's not right. But he actually like points at each eye and counts it out. Like,
yep. No, it was pretty funny. So the journalist is like, okay, this is news. And there's several articles that come out. So mutation caught at old fishing hole. Now it's old fishing hole, not old fishing hole. Is the power plant responsible? And then boy was using 5-pound test and ordinary worms. Sister was just there for the tranquility. Now Bart was using a stick with string on it.
Yeah.
he was not using a fishing rod.
No, he was not. And then
so obviously they were over exaggerating in the news.
So then the next scene, you see Bart, putting the news article in a binder. And right next to it, there's another article about Vandal decapitating statue. And I wonder where that came from.
The Telltale Head episode.
Yeah. So, I like to used to say that the Simpsons don't do continuity, and I've been proven wrong.
Yes, the Simpsons did it.
The Simpsons do continuity. I mean, it's minor. Obviously, every episode is kind of different, and like nothing really changes. But they do continuity.
Throughout the series so far, there's always throwbacks to things. At least Homer did. Yeah. I don't know if there's many throwbacks to things Bart did, but there are quite a few throwbacks to what Homer does. A lot.
Yeah. So then we see another spinny headline. And it goes, fission hole or fission hole. Burns denies responsibility in fish flap. And then underneath it says, count the eyes, Mr. Burns.
Yeah.
You gotta keep people responsible and accountable.
Yep. And Burns is the most unethical guy in the world, as we will come upon here.
People hate him.
Oh, absolutely.
The town does not like him, as we will find out. But he is probably the most despised human in Springfield.
Yep. So the governor calls for a power plant investigation. And the governor of Springfield is Mary Bailey.
And her name is the same name as George Bailey's wife in the movie It's a Wonderful Life.
That is correct.
So, the Simpsons, they like to use from, I would say, pop culture, but It's a Wonderful Life is like almost a 60-year-old movie at this point.
It's still pop culture.
Yeah. I mean, at this point it was, about between 25 and 30. I believe it came out in 1964. So, a 20 plus year old reference, but a lot of people do watch It's a Wonderful Life every year. So a lot of people might get that reference.
Yep. So Homer is about ready to go to work. And as you mentioned, Maggie slips out of her high chair. That must be a horrible high chair.
Yeah. Well, Maggie, she's a squirrely baby.
Oh, she is. She squirms around everywhere. So Homer doesn't like that President's Day because he wants more paid holidays. So they merge Lincoln and
Washington's
birthday all into one holiday.
Yeah.
It is kind of a jip.
Yeah. And I love how he's complaining about it. And then Marge goes, Homer, you're going to be late for work. He's like, somebody will punch me in. I'm like, I want to work at that job.
Well, it's funny. I've actually worked at a job where other people will punch other people in.
Yeah.
And it's, very unethical.
Oh, very unethical. I mean, don't get me wrong. The job that I currently work at and my first full-time job that I had, we get to type in our hours. Now, don't get me wrong. There was a time card machine where we just swipe our card, or we could just type them in. And so I would just type it in, and my bosses, they know I'm there. But the con about typing in your own hours is if you forget to do it. So swiping in and out is probably a better system. Having somebody swipe in for you, you shouldn't do that.
That's right. So Homer finally gets to work and laments how he can't get to work on time for good donuts, even though he's the one that can't get to work on time.
It's like, dude, it's your own fault.
Yep. And so in the midst of all of this, we have the safety inspectors, or I guess the nuclear power plant inspectors, coming by to do a little inspection. And there are several infractions.
Several infractions. We'll get to how many in a second here. But
what do they point out? They point out that there is gum used to seal crack in the cooling tower.
That's a big no-no.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't do that.
No.
Plutonium rod is used as a paperweight.
Again, probably shouldn't do that.
Which is, I feel like the plutonium rod would burn through the table. Like it wouldn't necessarily
it's radiated.
Hold paper.
So, yeah, probably.
Probably. And then there's a crack in an acid pipe that's dripping. And I think Burns was like, oh, that's been like that for years.
Yeah. It's like, that doesn't make it better.
No, it does not make it any better. And I like how they're standing in it. Like it's like a pool.
I know. Maybe the radiation's all gone from that pool. I don't know.
It's shin deep. They're shin deep in nuclear waste, and apparently but then I like how they get to Homer's sector,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then they're like, "Monitoring station unmanned."
Well, but it wasn't unmanned. He was just sleeping.
Yeah,
I
but
know
he
they're
woke
probably
but he
trying to
woke
make
up and
fun of
started
Homer.
working.
I'm sure they're troubling. It's just a joke at Homer's expense that he's useless. But at the same time, he was there. They could have written down, "Oh, employees sleep on the job," instead of "station unmanned," because
I
I don't
really
feel like
kinda
the station was unmanned.
or they could have been safety inspector fall asleep at job.
Like, yeah. So, and then they ask. So after the inspection, they go back up to Burns's office, and Burns goes, "Who cares? Carelessly left all this pile of money right here. Why don't I leave?" And he's talking to the inspector. "Why don't I leave you and the money alone?" And he steps outside. Like,
Yeah, he's like, "Smithers, why don't we leave this room, and hopefully, when we return, the pile of money will be gone."
and like you, like I get it. Burns has a lot of money, and he's trying to. Obviously, it's a bribe for the safety inspector, and the safety inspector actually has morals, which is good. I love the fact that the safety inspector is like, "Burns, you're trying to bribe me. I found 342 violations." I feel like if a place has more than like 10 violations, that
It
place
should be
should
shut down.
probably should be shut, especially a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, especially nuclear power plants that have glow-in-the-dark rats.
Yeah, I love that when they cut to a scene. Oh, it was at because Homer fell asleep, and but
He wakes up
before
at
that,
9:30. Like, he wakes up at, like, 9:30, like, I'm still working? Oh, wait." And then he calls Marge to say, "It's it's been a long day. 12-hour days are killing me."
yeah. But before we see that Homer had fallen asleep at work, Burns asked Smithers how much it would cost to repair all the violations, and Smithers goes, he does the calculation, and it comes out to $56 million to fix the power plant. It was a little bit more. I think it was like 56 million and 800,000 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
But
Yeah, I
like,
saw an 8 in there.
yeah, dude, you're like the richest man in town. You're telling me you don't have $56 million to fix your power plant?
Well, I mean, I think that would just make the power plant broke at that point.
Probably. And then after that, Burns kicks out Smithers, and he gets hammered, and he sings a song. I believe the name of the song is "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," which is also another title of a different Simpsons episode, or
Yep.
close to it. I don't know where the song comes from. I should have done the research a little bit more, but I was just like, he's drunk. That's what drunk people do. They sing.
Well, it's an old song from his era. Remember, he's
Yeah.
81 years old, so it's
Okay.
from his time.
Yep.
Homer gives Burns the idea to run for governor in his car without slightly insulting him.
Yep. Yeah. Only honest people can't run for government, and Homer is just like, "Well, why don't you do it?" And he's like, "Are you saying I'm not honest?" And Homer's like, "No. I'm just saying you have the money to run for governor."
Yeah, exactly. We get to see Burns's little speech on TV, and they're preluded, or I'm guessing interrupted, by a dreary movie for a dreary afternoon. At least that's what Abe Simpson and Jasper are watching.
Yeah. I love
at
the
the old
fact that
retirement
like
home.
they argued with one another to change the channel. And they're like, screw it, we'll just watch whatever's on. Like,
Yep.
I feel like we might have done that when we were kids, or like, no, because we had an old TV where it was the turn knobs. We didn't have the remote clicker. And it's like, you change the channel, you change it. And then we're like, screw it, we'll just watch whatever comes on next.
Yep. And so Burns kind of basically sets the tone for running for governor.
Yep.
We learn that apparently Springfield, they closed down the bars.
Yep.
And Barney's pissed.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard of a town closing down their bars for an election. And this episode did come out in an election year, because 1990 was a president. Nope, I lied. It was not a presidential year. I mean, I'm sure there were elections in 1990, because there's elections every freaking year, it seems like.
Well, maybe it was an election year for a governor.
Yeah, it could have been. But like, I don't think I've ever heard of a city or a village or whatever closing down their bars because there's an election.
Well, you don't want to be drunk while you're voting, right?
I mean,
You might vote for the wrong person.
you
Okay, to
could.
be fair, there's not a voting for wrong person. Wink, wink. Oh
Yeah.
wait, I said the loud part soft and winked at the soft part.
So then, so they're like, so before Burns goes on, they're like, "Oh, you got to smile more," and he's like, they're like, "Oh, okay, perfect." And Burns is like, "I'm gonna be sore in the morning," because Burns is a surly old man who doesn't smile.
Exactly.
And so they do the commercial, and this is actually where we first hear the name of the fish, and it's Mr. Burns who coins the fish's name as Blinky.
I mean, the
I
fish
didn't
does blink a lot.
It does, but I never knew, like, I've seen this episode, obviously, and it's been a really long time since I've seen this episode. I did not realize that Burns was the one that called the fish Blinky.
So in the commercial, or well, I guess it's more of a, what would you call it?
Like a live political
A
ad.
live, yeah, sort of. They talked to an actor for Darwin,
Yeah, Charles Darwin.
Charles Darwin, and Darwin's like, you see, every so often Mother Nature changes their animals, giving them bigger teeth, sharper claws, longer legs, or in this case, a third eye. And if these variations turn out to be an improvement, the new animals thrive and multiply and spread across the face of the earth. So Bird's like, so you're saying this fish might have an advantage over the other fish. That may in fact be a kind of super fish. And Darwin's like, I wouldn't mind having a third eye, would you?
Yeah. And then Burns even says in the little ad that Blinky would taste good. So hold on to that thought.
Yep. And I love at the end, Burns is standing there with the flag, and the motto of the state that Springfield is in is not just another state, which, early on, obviously we're only on season 2, episode 4, but they're already alluding to the fact that Springfield is just somewhere. We're not in a state.
So
after
after the ad, we go back to the Simpsons household, and Homer's like, "Oh, you got to vote for Burns," and Marge is like, "Oh, I'm a Governor Bailey woman," and they like fight and they call each other names. And I just wanted to note that this is a 30-year-old episode, and things really haven't changed. 30 years.
I do like Lisa though at the beginning. She's like, "Ooh, a political discussion at our table. I feel like a Kennedy."
Yeah. And like I you know what? We should all be discussing in a respectful manner. And obviously in this episode that doesn't happen. Burns's team tries to do mudslinging and try to do deceitful tactics, which happens all the time in politics.
And well, you do know the positions on Burns's political team, right? There's a speechwriter, a joke writer, a spin doctor,
a
makeup man. I like how it's makeup man, not makeup artist. Personal trainer, mud raker, character assassin, mudslinger, and garbologist.
I don't know what a garbologist is.
Maybe cutting through all of Burns's garble.
Maybe. So, I mean, this is a somewhat heavy political episode for the last 10 to 15 minutes. And we will not ever talk about politics unless it shows up in a Simpsons episode. And obviously we won't, give our opinions on whatever politics, but this episode still captures the essence of how politics are driven in American society. And I think that was part of the reason the writers wrote this episode. In my research, I think I came across something like that. So, you know what? If you're having a political discussion, try to be respectful. And if you don't think you can, walk away. Unlike The Simpsons here, where they name called each other and it split the house, and it's never good.
Well, it was mostly Homer versus everyone else.
Well, I feel like Bart sided with Homer, but I don't think
Bart was wearing a shirt that says, "I have to vote for Burns because my dad said so."
Gotcha. Yeah, it wasn't Lisa's like, "I can't vote, but if I could, I'd vote for Bailey."
Yep. All right, so Burns picks Homer's house to appeal to the common man, and I do like his quote. He's like, "Oh, I get your angle. Every Joe Meatball and Sally Housecode in this godforsaken state will see me hunkering down for chow with Eddie Punch Clock. The media will have a field day."
I mean, in politics, you got to appeal to the people you want to vote for you. And so I love the fact, though, that when they picked out Homer, he like scratches his butt and burps, and Burns is like, really, this guy? Like, again, it doesn't feel like Burns knows who Homer is.
I know. And I do want to point out, we're going to go through this as each episode, but I do like this in this godforsaken state. I want to see how many times they allude to being in a state but never actually say the state.
I'm sure there's probably a good couple hundred episodes.
I know. All right, so Maggie eats her food with a pacifier, as we see at the table when they're all.
I love that. Like, she's a very resourceful baby.
Yep, and this is right before Homer has to ask Marge if Burns could have dinner there. And Marge is obviously absolutely not. And then he's like, "Kids, I want you to leave the room. I can't have you see what I'm about to do next."
And they're like, "Uh-oh." And like, I love how the fact that the animation, like in the last episode, Andy was like, a lot of the stuff in The Simpsons that his kids know from Warner Brothers, they got from The Simpsons. And I feel like this is an instance of that, because in the Warner Brothers, when you see like a cartoon character run away, it's like a blur. And that was exactly the animation style in this scene where they're like, where it's like, all right, kids, I don't want you to see this. And like, they leave in a blur. And I thought that was, good animation. I mean, it is what it is. Maybe it made it easier on the animators to do it that way. I don't know.
Yeah. So Homer tries to snuggle with Marge, but she won't do it because she can't express herself. Like, she just goes onto the floor. And then Homer's like, okay, you can express yourself. And, she comes back to bed. And she's like, oh, I will express myself.
Well, so he had said, well, Homer's like, well, you express yourself through the house that you keep and the food that you make. And I think this is where we see Marge formulating a plan, because as you just said, she's like, oh, I will express myself then. And Homer, you kind of look at Homer and he's kind of got this confused look on his face. Yeah. He's like, oh boy, what is she going to do?
Yep. And so the next day they're all getting ready for the dinner with Burns. All the Simpsons are in makeup. All of them, the cat, dog, everyone.
I don't think the cat or the dog need makeup.
No, but I do like that at the very end, it's Homer and he's, all in his makeup, and they're like, we don't, we want him to be the common man, not Tyrone Power. And I looked it up, and Tyrone Edmund Power III was an American film, stage, and radio actor from the 1930s to the 1950s. Power appeared in a dozen films, often in swashbuckler roles or romantic leads.
Okay.
And so, obviously, Mr. Burns is older. I'm sure, that's why that reference was kind of thrown in there, because he knew the makeup stylings of this person, and apparently it was just a thrown in there. No one else, just like you said, who is this guy? No one's gonna really get.
I mean, I would love to show this particular episode to like the Generation Zers and show them this clip and be like, do you have any idea who that is? And like, I didn't know. To be perfectly honest, our dad he reads a lot. He knows a lot of information. Do you think he would even know who Tyrone Power is?
I don't know. It'd be a good thing to show him, I think.
I might have to ask him. So, we get to the night of the dinner. Burns, they're rearranging the Simpsons house with like Burns stuff, and Burns comes to the door and he's like, I brought some noodle kugel. And I feel like that dish is a very Jewish centric dish. It might not be, but I remember having it a lot at Temple, and our mom made it a few times here and there. And so like, is Burns Jewish, or is it just,
or he thinks the Simpsons are Jewish?
Like, I don't know why the writers came up with noodle kugel for that.
Yeah, it's a very obscure dish to bring to a house.
Like, I knew what it was. I'm sure, obviously, I know you know. I did,
yeah.
I'm kind of curious to know if other people and other cultures know what noodle kugel is. Don't get me wrong, it's very delicious, and I actually kind of craving it right now. But why that dish? And why did Burns even bring food? Did he really need to bring food?
No. So I do say this now. So hopefully the people that listen to this episode when it comes out on Sunday and Monday, maybe, just maybe, this might be a really good trivia question for Trivia Tuesday. So maybe, wink, wink. We'll see what happens on Tuesday. All right. So Santa's Little Helper and Snowball jump on Burns independently, not all
Yep.
together. And the public loved it. I think
Yeah.
that was almost the tipping point
Yeah.
where Burns had the lead. He couldn't lose unless he did something absolutely stupid.
So then it's question time at dinner. I love how the fact that like his team are like telling him to eat the salad. That
Yeah, like every
I feel like Burns should know to do that, but again, he's old. He doesn't seem to understand politics because he hired a team, and so Homer asks him a question. Burns is like, "Oh, I didn't realize we were going to have questions," and Homer almost is like, "Oh yeah, that's what the card told me," and then Burns
hearts.
interrupts him. Yeah, I've never had a politician over for a meal. I hardly ever speak to politicians. I've met a few here and there. Do politicians really go to, I don't know if they do it. They probably don't do it anymore in this day and age where they go to Joe Schmo's house to have dinner with him. But would they really set up a question and answer?
Well, I
mean,
think since it was live on TV, I think that they're trying to get, it was, remember, it was the night before. So I think they were
yeah,
just trying to get some polling,
yeah,
you know, information out there so
yeah.
Burns could answer the question and answer it in a way that, the Simpsons might, respond
Yeah.
to, and then that hikes up the polls.
And I feel for Lisa. I feel like any politician who would do this, and Burns did this unknowingly because it was his team, where his team told Lisa, "Hey, you need to ask him this question." And Lisa wanted to ask him something else, and they're like, "No, if you're a person who's politically active and you go to a rally and you want to ask a question to a politician, I know a lot of times, like especially in like late night TV shows, anytime there's an interview, there's always questions run through a moderator. If they don't allow you to ask that question, demand to know why.
Well,
Just
I feel like that. I mean, I know obviously we're going to try to stay out of politics,
yeah,
but you watch those debates on TV and the
yeah,
person asks the question. They're some of the stupidest questions.
yeah.
Like they really are. And I'm like, did that person really want to ask that question?
Or
Because
do they
I
want
wouldn't.
no?
Like if I went to the thing, I want to write my own question. I guarantee you, they'd be like, nope, you're not allowed to ask that
Yeah.
question.
So like if you feel like you need to ask a question to your politician, write them, call their office, go through channels to try to get your question answered, even if it's just privately answered to you. And I know there's a lot, like I remember, I don't know if you remember doing this. I believe it was in 8th grade where we had to write a state senator or state legislature. And I don't remember what question I asked, but I got like, one of those cookie cutter responses. If you have a question that you want answered by a politician or even a city official, like let's say, hey, garbage collection isn't coming for some reason, write them. Don't be relentless about it. Get your answer. That way
Yep.
you're an informed voter.
After Lisa asks her question, she gets up and leaves. And Marge is like, Lisa, you know what? Don't worry about it.
I got this.
I got this. So Marge brings out Burns's main course, which is unfortunate. I like to say, unfortunately, it's Blinky. Like, is it Blinky, or did they just go and catch another three-eyed fish?
So I think this
I kind of feel,
but in later episodes you see a three-eyed fish and you just assume
you see
it's
multiple. You see multiple three-eyed fish.
So are they just all? Is it like the snowball thing where they're all Blinky, but like 1, 2, 3, 4?
Well, maybe that's like the. So remember, you called him Blinky. Well, maybe that's a type of fish. I mean, you could say it's a goldfish, but it's a Blinky fish.
I think the name of the fish is Blinky, as we will find out at the end of this episode.
Yes.
So maybe there's just multiple Blinkies, or as you said, maybe they caught another fish. Like here's the thing. How would Marge have gotten the original Blinky?
Exactly. It was probably under lock and key. I mean, Burns had it, so I feel like the fish itself was probably under lock and key. So Marge, or maybe Bart, went out fishing again and caught a new fish.
Yeah.
And so Burns takes a bite of the fish, chews it a little bit, immediately spits it out.
And remember, in his ad, he said, "Oh yeah, Blinky will taste good." And it basically, I don't know why it would kill his poll numbers.
Well, he spit it out. He literally told everyone it tastes good. And I mean, everyone was hanging on that. That was obviously the linchpin of his entire campaign, was Blinky tastes good.
And then I love how so after that happens, all the reporters in the Simpsons house run outside, and there's just phones and landlines just set up there.
I mean,
Like
I don't know if maybe you could tap a phone line outside and set up a
maybe,
call center.
like in this day and age, if that were to happen, everybody has a cell phone.
Yes, now
I,
everyone has a cell phone, but not everyone had cell phones in the 90s.
no, not a
I
lot
don't
of people.
even. I mean, they were big, bulky cell
Yeah.
phones.
And I love one of the reporters like, I got a scoop for you. Burns can't swallow owns story.
Yep.
And so he gets angry, and we find out what the C in C Montgomery Burns stands for.
You know, it's funny. I always knew what the C stood for. I knew it was Charles. Like
Yeah.
I've known that forever. I didn't realize this was the episode because it's actually said at least 2 or 3 more times in the next probably 10 seasons.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they just refer to him as C. Montgomery Burns. Exactly. And I heard it. I'm like, man, I could have sworn it was a much, much later episode that they actually say it.
So Charles Montgomery Burns.
Yep. So Burns wrecks the Simpsons house after blowing the election. And then Lisa's like, why are you wrecking all of our stuff? And Burns is like, you're right. Let's go back to my house and break something more tasteful.
Okay. That's kind of a dick thing to say.
Yeah. Simpsons, they don't have the biggest, the most, stuff. They don't have good stuff.
So as Burns is leaving to go wreck his own stuff, he calls the Simpsons slack-jawed troglodytes. And for anybody out there, and I've heard the term troglodyte before, and I couldn't place what it meant. It's another term for a cave dweller, a Neanderthal.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call the Simpsons Neanderthals.
I'd call Homer a Neanderthal. I'd call Homer a Neanderthal.
Maybe, but they definitely don't live in a cave.
No, they don't.
And then
but
Burns,
compared to Burns, they might as well.
Yes. So Burns threatens to make Homer's dreams go unfulfilled, which I think is funny because after Burns leaves, he's not going to remember who Homer is.
No, absolutely not. I thought that was funny.
Yep. And then Marge obviously makes Homer feel better for, not having his dreams crushed.
So we got a few notes here at the end.
Monty Burns and Mary Bailey are battling to become chief executive of a state whose name is never mentioned. Like I do just think it's hilarious that this early on, every TV show that I could think of, regardless of if it's fictional or not, at least the state is mentioned.
Yeah.
Like, it's just really funny how The Simpsons just decided that we're going to create a show with a fictional city, and it's just not from anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems really funny to me that that's the direction that they decided to go. I mean, it works. I mean, it on multiple levels, it works.
Oh, yeah. And people still talk about it to this day. Oh, what state are they in? They're not in any state. They're in Springfield.
They're in the state of Springfield, which is the 52nd state.
Yes. Wait, what's the 51st?
Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico is a territory.
Oh, I thought there was technically a 50. Maybe not.
No. I think you need to listen to more of Andy's Edumacation series.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to more of his stuff.
So this episode won the Environmental Media Award in 1991 for Best TV Show with an Environmental Message, which is don't nuclear waste into rivers and streams. Otherwise, you will
which Burns does. Yeah, he does that multiple times throughout the series.
Yes.
So the name of the episode is in reference to a Herbert Hoover slogan: "A chicken in every pot and a car in every backyard to boot."
So,
which I don't know why he wouldn't have gone with the word garage, unless cars didn't go into garages back then.
I mean, Herbert Hoover was, I don't remember when Hoover was president or ran for president. If anybody, I need to listen to more education, apparently. Probably not. I don't know when the garage started becoming a thing. Probably at least in the 60s, maybe 70s.
I mean, who puts their car in the backyard? Unless you're coming off like an alley, who's just parking their car in a backyard?
Well, I mean, technically at your old house, your garage was in the alley.
Yeah, that's why I said alley.
Yeah.
But maybe most houses were off alleys. I guess I'm not entirely sure how houses were back then.
So we got a couple of Citizen Kane references. Great movie, by the way. The scene where Burns is giving a speech in front of his poster, that is taken from when the lead in Citizen Kane is giving his speech in front of his poster, and the scene where Burns is tearing apart the Simpsons house, that is also in reference to Citizen Kane.
And so
So,
I do love your note down here about this episode reran on June
oh yeah.
25th in 1992 with a new chalkboard gag where Bart writes, "It's potato, not potato," in reference to the then Vice President Dan Quayle tried to correct a student who correctly spelled potato in an elementary spelling bee, which is
So the student spelled potato correctly. Quayle tried to add an E at the end. That ain't a good look.
why would they redo a chalkboard? It's
To make
where
fun of Dan
is
Quayle.
no, I get that, but where is that chalkboard gag in reference to production? Like, obviously, it wasn't in
This
Disney
episode.
Plus. Like,
No,
you know
I'm
what I
wondering.
mean?
I'm wondering if they made it specifically for that rerun in
So,
'92.
like a one-run rerun with
Yeah,
a different chalkboard gag.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna keep an eye out. I want to see
If that
in the
actually
next
comes up,
if it actually comes up. I want
right.
to see in the next few years, while we're watching episodes, if it actually gets used, because that would be kind of interesting to see if how they repeat couch gags.
Oh yeah,
It'd be interesting to see if maybe someone saw that episode and like, okay, you know what? Let's reuse that one more time, just in a different episode, so everyone can see it. Because if you put it in a rerun, not everyone's going to see it because they're going to be like, well, I saw the original run of that episode. Why am I
yeah,
going to watch a rerun today?
yeah. So yeah, that was an interesting little tidbit. So final thoughts on the episode?
I mean, this is just kind of one of my favorite, I think, underrated episodes. Like,
Okay.
it's not one you see all the time.
No.
It really isn't. I love just the beginning of the episode where you kind of get Homer's take on being at the nuclear power plant and how his life kind of runs. This is really the first time you see anyone at the power plant making, you know, accusations to Burns on how bad the plant really is.
I
I
feel
mean,
like this might be the only episode where the plant is under inspection.
I think there's at least one or two more,
Okay.
but we'll put a pin in that and find it.
Okay.
But obviously the introduction of Blinky is amazing. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
where he comes from. It's just kind of an off. I mean, it obviously played the entire episode, but it's one
Yeah.
of those. The beginning of the episode always speaks to how the episode's going to kind of branch out,
Yeah.
and putting that right in the beginning of the episode where Blinky is found, just it's just so cool to see a now notable character
Yeah.
that's out in the world. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but they made a set of Blinky Vans shoes.
Oh my god. I knew they
Like,
did like a Bart Simpson's Vans,
yep,
but
they're
Blinky?
they're slip on Blinky shoes.
Oh my god.
And I don't I
Shut
think
up
they're
and take
sold
my
out
money.
now. I know. I think they're sold out now, but someone posted those on Instagram and I'm like, man, but originally, so they're actually for grown-ups, but when I originally saw the post from when I originally saw the post for Vans, they were just for little kids. And I was thinking
Oh,
about getting my son one
of
because
course.
I'm like, why wouldn't I get him those slip-on
And he
shoes?
loves fish,
Exactly. So I assumed it was just for kids because
but it's not.
it's not just for kids. It's actually for grown-ups as well. So if you're on Vans' website and they're still available, dude, get them because they're amazing. So I'm gonna give this. I'm not gonna go all the way to Everything's Coming Up Millhouse, but I'm giving it a number 4 sprinkles because it is a great episode. It's not on my. I wouldn't say it's on my top 10 or top
Oh
20
no.
list. But it is a fantastic episode. I love anytime Burns gets shut down for doing stupid stuff.
Oh yeah.
So it is.
But did he get shut down though?
Oh, he got shut down hard. Well,
Well,
not the
as
plant. I'm saying
the
Mr. Burns.
oh,
Mr.
gotcha.
Burns got shut down.
I gotcha.
He got what was coming to him. It's kind of like in our future episode when he tries to win film award
God,
and
I
an
forgot
Oscar.
about that episode.
So we'll get to that later. But I love episodes where Burns just gets his ass handed to him.
I enjoy this episode. I like the introduction of Blinky. I like the continuity with Bart putting in the newspaper clipping next to the one where he vandalized Jebediah Springfield statue. The political, I like how they captured the essence of politics are, and it still holds true today with how politics are divisive and how we, should be talking to one another. I like the fact that, they really did a good job of making Marge a very strong female character. And it's just like she took it in her own hand to, prove Burns wrong on something and to prove Homer wrong. And she's I never came to this conclusion that Marge was a super strong female character, but she really is like, I think she's the glue that holds that family together. I think
Yeah, I
without
mean,
Marge, that family is just, and I think we see it in a few episodes where, Marge goes off and like they just fall apart. I'm gonna have to agree with you on the sprinkles grade this week. I enjoy this episode. I think it would be an episode where I may go out of my way to watch it. Some of the sight gags are great. Love Blinky. Love Blinky. Just on a side note, so Mayor Bailey or Mary Bailey, investigative reporter, do show up in a few other episodes, but really as side characters.
okay, yeah, I mean, usually it's really funny that they would obviously the governor does run the state, so
Yeah.
it's not off to see the governor involved
No.
in an episode like this where it's a nuclear power plant that's in the state of whatever and
Whatever.
yep, exactly. And that's who would be in charge of shutting down the power plant. The state
Yes.
would be, not Mayor Quimby.
No.
So
Well,
it is
that's why Burns ran for governor so that
yep,
his plant wouldn't be shut
yep.
down.
So yeah, so it is kind of cool that they went deeper into the political system
Yeah.
as opposed to saying, oh no, it's just because Mayor Quimby was already a character. They could have went that route. They could have said,
Yeah.
okay, Mayor Quimby, you're gonna be the one in charge of shutting down the plant. Burns could run for mayor, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They actually took it to the next level
Yeah.
and said, okay, the state would be the one to shut it down. Let's go governor.
Is there an
And
episode where Burns runs for mayor, or am I just
I
imagining that?
no, I mean, I feel like a lot of people run for mayor. I know Sideshow Bob runs for
Yeah.
mayor. I feel like Burns runs for mayor. Homer might even run for mayor. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I don't think so. That being said, I just want to let everyone know that by the recording this episode, we've superseded 1,000 downloads. I probably could have mentioned that last episode, but I didn't want to hit Andy with the boring details of that.
No.
But we've superseded 1,000 downloads. So thank you to all of our listeners.
Yeah, thank you. Please keep listening.
And our contest that was running has come to its conclusion. I'm going to be tallying up all the surveys that we got. So thank you to everyone who put in all your feedback.
Yep.
We're going to read through it. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start doing some notable feedback on our show. So at the end of every episode, we're going to start mentioning feedback, every episode from a certain person. We'll say your name and say what you wrote, because I do love the feedback. We may either do it at the beginning or at the end.
We'll thank you for the feedback. It's been awesome. We've gotten some really good responses. So thank you guys for listening and enjoying and continuing to listen.
Twitter is The Simpsons Did It PC. Instagram, The Simpsons Did It Pod. And on Facebook, you just type in The Simpsons Did It. Click on our page, click follow. You can see all the fun things we've been posting week after week after week. So let's finish up with our character profile. And this week we're highlighting our favorite Simpson character. Okay, maybe not our favorite Simpson character.
Top 5.
Top 5. We'll call him. Well, how about this? How about we call him our favorite Simpsons animal?
Well, what about Santa's little helper?
Bah, Blinky's better. Okay, anyway, so
what's wrong with you?
Okay, maybe not. So Blinky's our top 10 Simpsons character, top 5 Simpsons animal. There we go.
Okay.
I settled it. Okay, so Blinky is our character profile, and his identity is the three-eyed fish.
Yep.
His home, he lives in the stream outside Springfield Nuclear Power Plant. So I'm guessing Burns must have set him free, catch and release, mind you. How third eye formed? Mutation resulting from water polluted by nuclear waste, and not by how Charles Darwin put it, evolution.
Yeah.
Mr. Burns's theory is Blinky's next step in on the fish evolutionary scale, and the taste, the all important taste of Blinky or Blinky type fish.
Yes.
Only Mr. Byrne knows for sure.
I want to know what Blinky tastes like.
I know. Either that or, you know, it could have been a complete setup. I
It
mean,
could have been.
let's just call this what it is. Marge, yes, fed Blinky or Blinky Fishy to Burns. But did Marge cook it horribly? What flavoring did she use?
I mean, we do know
What
Marge is a good cook.
we do, but that being said, maybe there was something she could have done to make this fish taste better instead of just throwing it in a pan on the stove.
That's
Maybe
true.
it was sabotage.
Or maybe she just cooked it, didn't put any other stuff on it, just fed it plain.
I mean, okay, don't get me wrong. Like mahi mahi, trout, tuna, a lot of those fishes really you do use like tartar sauce and dipping sauce stuff like
Yeah.
mind you, but they do taste good without it.
Yeah.
Salmon, I can't eat without a flavoring. For
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
reason, I just can't eat salmon without a flavoring. So, to be fair, however this fish was cooked might not have been up to Burns' standards, or it could have just completely tasted like nuclear waste and he
I mean,
spit
it
it out.
probably did. I mean,
So,
it's a radiated fish.
yes. So to be fair, it could have been a horrible tasting fish, but only Burns knows.
Only
Only
Burns
Burns
knows.
knows, and only Marge knows how she cooked it.
That's true.
So until next time, I'm Steven Skolansky.
I'm Robert Skolansky.
And this has been The Simpsons Did It.